You're so good. I love you. You're so precious. There are a few things in the practice that if you don't pay attention enough towards them, you may not get to what you want, because those stuff might be foundational for developing inner strength and flexibility and get to the practice that is actually effortless to you. So the first thing is rooting. I cannot emphasize more on this, and I keep telling my students about rooting because like the practice is on the mat, right? You have to have a good relation towards the floor in order to build all the asanas up from the floor up, even when it's the inversions, or either it's the standing sequence that you have to ground down through the toes into the legs, or it's a sitting posture that you have to sit with a tall spine. So you're gaining energy from your contact area, from the ground, okay? So you're either on your fingers, you're either on your toes, on your legs, even one leg, two leg, or you're sitting. Whatever you're doing, you have to remember that the more you push, the more you lift, more effortless the posture would be. And it's more beneficial to you. More beneficial to keep your posture lifted at all times. For example, if you're having some dysfunctional posture in your upper body or in your lower body, or like you have a rounded back, rounded shoulder, the more you learn to just lift up as you're pushing down, most of the problems will be solved. For example, if you, I always say that if you're having this posture, instead of doing this, which is like not fixing the problem and it's also exhausting, like you have to muscle yourself up, tilt the sternum up, so chest will be always pulling away from the hip. This is one of the first cues that you can keep reminding yourself. You can keep doing it on the mat, and then of course with the awareness that you're gaining from the practice, you can do it off the mat. And when you're rounding your back, you just like keep remembering, chest always away from the hip. And some rounding things like from these areas, it will be solved later on after you gained enough awareness just to lift up. Getting back to the main conversation. When you're on your hands, you got to spread your fingers as wide as you can. Mine is like this most of the time, like these two are kind of together, and the space that I'm making between my index finger and my thumb is like quite wide, and I'm pulling this finger away from the thumb. You see how spread my fingers are? This will give me a very good grounding area that I can grab the floor. This is the rooting of the fingers. This is the position that you always should have. This is the fingers, okay? And there is this area that have to be active when you're pushing. I'm going to show it on the mat. As soon as you're putting your hand on the mat, you have to push here to here, all the areas in the palm of your hand. And one of the alignments that I really find it very important is that the index finger is in one line with your forearm, you see, and the thumb is towards you. Also, like when you're doing something like a pincha mayurasana, you have to, like I always do this, I tap my shoulder, I lower down my forearms, I turn the wrist, and I ground like this. And my shoulders always parallel towards each other, and the thumb also. So this is the grounding, the rooting that you have to do. And remember, you have to push down and go up. This is the exact coordination that you have to think of. Do not think about where are the joints or like any body parts. Just think about the energetic lift or the energetic movement from each asana, from each pose that you are, okay? Next grounding thing that you have to learn is the grounding with the foot, which is always as it is with the fingers, you have to do it with your toes. Now, what you should know is that you have to spread your toes exactly like this as well. It's the same thing that you do with the fingers, so you have to do it with your toes as well, right? Like this. It's like exactly like a cat when they stretch, or a raccoon. When I step on the mat from the Samasthiti, I spread my toes and I push my big toe on the mat, and exactly like the way that I do with my fingers, I pull away the 4 tiny toes away from the big toe. And I push all the toe knuckles outside edge of the foot, and I'm pulling the arch of the feet up as I'm pushing down the heel. So this is the grounding, and it is exactly the way that it works with the hand. You're pushing all the knuckles and you're pulling away. That's the energetic coordination that I told you. Something I want you to bring your awareness to is if you're leaning like this on your ankle, you will have the internal rotation of the knees, and of course all the alignment that you have from the ground up is gonna be compromised, right? So one of the first thing that I fixed in my own practice was not to lean towards my ankle, which of course, can you see? This is the posture that I developed through years in a bad posture. I can still lean onto it, but I don't, because like I got aware, and every time throughout years I remind myself that I should not lean on my ankle, and you see how I'm pulling away, and I can stand straight. Another pose that is very important to ground down with the toes in a correct way, in a good alignment, which like really helps you get rid of all the dysfunction, is Uttitha. So the thing is, like most of the time we just, again, we do this, we're bringing the ankle towards each other, which if you don't have any dysfunction in your legs, in your lower body, I don't find that a big problem. But if you want to fix your posture, and if you want to get stronger in your legs and your lower body, you got to bring your awareness into how you're rooting, okay? So the same thing, toes, heels, pulling away. So it's super active. You see there's still space in between my thighs. Another example is Prasarita Padangustasana, which I see most of the time people like doing this. They're like leaning towards the ankle. But what you should do again is like rooting and like working with the outside of the leg as you're pulling up the arch of the foot. Or all the standing poses, actually, if you think about it, is like that. Virabhadrasana, Parshvakonasana, Trikonasana.
Parshvakonasana, Uttitha, hasta, padangustasana, wobbly, which is one leg is in half lotus and folding forward while you're holding the toe.
I, most of the time myself, I lean again on my ankle, and I have to keep remind myself that push down, pull up, and the sit bone up. That will actually give you a very good understanding of how does the activation of the pelvic floor works. It will make you more strong in activating your MULABANDHA, because you have lots of awareness into pulling in, which is the MULABANDHA. It's pulling in. The thing with Uttitha, hasta, padangustasana, I think, is also the same thing. So you have to, like, this is good. Okay. So you're pushing the leg on the floor like this, and not like this. See the difference? Like this. And lift the leg in this direction. Okay? Make sure that your inner thighs are active. So, Another thing I want to tell you is the sitting postures, but it really has something to do with, especially in the primary series. Like, I mean, like you learn it in the primary series, is how to keep your legs active without over activation in your thighs, and like don't exhausting yourself. I do the same thing. So I'm not flexing too much. When I'm flexing too much, which I guess like for a few years in my practice, like at the beginning especially, it did, as you see, like it just overworks this part of my leg, and unfortunately it does not work for me anymore. And it's been a few years that I do this. I bring my toes, let's sit this way, I'm gonna lower down the video. Okay, so this one is different rather than standing. I'm pushing and pulling at the same time my inner thigh using my toe, and these four toes are pulling towards me. Okay, it will activate my thighs, it will activate my inner thigh, and it will help me to engage my pelvic floor much more. It is very noticeable in like Paschimottanasana, Dandasana, Janushirshasana. You know, they're all similar. So when you're doing it like this, I'm gonna show you what it does. So it will activate the front of the leg and the back of the leg at the same time. I don't feel much activation outside of the glutes, but more inner thighs towards the sit bones and up. Okay, and for Paschimottanasana, if you want to practice this thing, what you can do is micro bend your knees and tilt from the hip, hold the big toe, and then just lower down, like bring your belly or your upper body just towards the knee, and keep the chest and head lifted. Lower down your shoulder. This will help much more in your sitting postures. It really gives me more awareness, and my footwork during the asana practice, just to like get rid of all the dysfunction that I have. It really helps me if I do this thing with my toes. I do it all the time now. It's just like unconscious. Even when my leg is in the shoe, I do that. So that awareness really helps. Each technique for each category of asana, of course, like it's different. Some of the asanas are much more complicated, like Karandavasana is super complicated, how to root down and like lift up, and it's a lot of Uddiyana Bandha. Rather than something like Kapotasana, which is like the rooting is here, and you have to push from the shin bone to the shin bone, into the shin bone, towards the floor, as you're going up with the psoas, chest, nipples, and the armpits. Or something like asanas in the third series, the arm balances, super difficult. Even like the first posture is very challenging, because you have to know how to pull, how to push, how to lift at the same time, and everything about it is about the angles. I love to talk about coordination. Maybe I record a video about coordination. Yeah, let's do that. I hope it helps. So do the cat feet or the raccoon feet every time you step on the mat, and slowly your posture will improve very much in a good way. Thanks for watching. See you soon.